My name is Ras Oduno Tariq, aka Baba Tariq Oduno, aka Baba Oduno. I want to thank Ras Kwasi, the family, the Lion's Voice, and it is time appropriately for the Lions to tell our story, where our noble ancestors will be honored, and we know that we have not been a negligible factor in the history of our story in the world. Thank you very much. There is no culture without agriculture. And without agriculture, I don't even want to think about it. Peace.
What do you have to tell the people about Rastafari?
Light to the world. The king of kings and the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. Elected himself, first rightful ruler. Hey yo! Yeah, hail them high, hail the black king on the 23rd of July. So tell them guy, who praise God up in the sky, it's a lie. The Almighty living on your night. From ancient time them a try. Them Romans know them just open them suit and ties. Criminals ain't got no alibi, they stole my people. Then them comes without them genocide.
Are you talking about slavery?
Them couldn't kill the lion we come conquer Judah tribe. Go through tribulation, and I strive, see sufferation, and I still rise. That's why we tell them in America, live Rastafari in every ghetto area. We come to tell them in a Toronto, straight to Italy.
Yeah. In terms of no culture without agriculture, this is what the world knows you for. Where did that come from? What was the inspiration for you creating that phrase, which is now a global phrase, and a lot of people don't know it comes from Baba Oduno, but where does that come from?
It came from my grandparents. It also came from, I got a little bit concerned about the consciousness of the Cushite, the Basuna, the Mawozi, the Yoruba community, and other communities. They put certain cultural contexts more predominantly ahead of going to the earth to feed ourselves.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Yeah. One king of kings, one throne. Thrones are the house of the great King David. I and I the generation of them that seek him, that seek the high face, O Jah. So lift up your heads, O you Ethiopians, and be lifted up, O you ever living doors, and let the king of Mount Zion Yadi. Well, we are king, we're that crown. Stepping on the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for we are can fi stand our ground. Attack the black man and them get smacked down. No, she a queen, we're that crown. Stepping at the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for we are can fi stand our ground. Attack the black woman and them get smacked down. For combat, have to stand for the black. Stand against the beast when the beast come attack. When the beast send crack, try to tear us down. When the lion roar, everybody hear the sound in Babylon town. Wicked man going drown. Earthquake shake, all them bars will break. Well, here's a hot take. There's a brimstone lake. Somebody gotta pay for the choice they make. Yo, be careful what you say, cause some news is fake. And every crew got a stitch to watch the moves you make. Well, it's not Drake, but the song's still great. Give your truth and rights, ladies, move them ways. Say yo, we a king, we're that crown. Stepping on the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for me, I can fi stand our ground. Attack the black man and them get smacked down. Yo, she a queen, we're that crown. Stepping on the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for me, I can fi stand our ground. Attack the black woman and them get smacked down. Look how the bassline heavy. Move them head but them still not ready. Out in the street and them filled with doubt. So every day Babylon no stop turn them out. My people them pray as the sun come out. And Babylon a beast every day them guns them out. Them destroy the earth, them a search for clout.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bansu, aka the Dejazmatch Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Panafrican Happy Man. I'm an entertainment attorney, I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I'm the host of the Lion's Voice. And I have a very special welcome to all of those who are here on the Lion Voice Network. We have in our midst a living legend. You may have heard the phrase, I may not know the origin. On this channel, we talk about the building of Zion. This is one of the elders who has influenced countless builders across the country, across the world, with the phrase, there is no culture without agriculture. He is a botanist who is self-taught, self-studied, but also has formal education. So he can go to the grassroots, which he does all the time, but he also lectures at universities and colleges of great distinctions, bringing programs. If you're from the DMV area and you have any inkling of consciousness, you have to know this elder. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about our esteemed elder, Baba Oduno. Blessings, Baba.
Blessings, Jah Rastafari, giving all honor and all praises to Jah, the Almighty, with our noble ancestors. I want to thank aka Bansu, his wonderful family, and that's charity begins at home, and then it spreads abroad. If I was going to dedicate this segment, I would dedicate it to our dad, Frank Woods of Opelousas, Louisiana, and our mother, Mertis Lee Ferdinand, from Brookhaven, Mississippi, 50 miles south of Jackson, Mississippi, in what we call the Choctaw Creek Seminole area. And I was born in the coastal city of Beaumont, Texas, the county of Jefferson, and a major river that's there is called the Neches River, which flows from near what we call Fort Worth and Dallas, 450 miles to the south through Beaumont, the Neches River, pouring into the Sabine. Within 22 miles, the Sabine pours into the Gulf of Mexico. So we are considered the Comanche nation. We're considered the nation of a number of indigenous people. Even though later on it's called New Spain, and later on it's called Mexico, which, interesting enough, the Haitians with Christophe and Dessalines and Boukman and Toussaint, and I would be really remiss and probably ran off of this platform if I didn't mention the nannies. The nannies Maroon. And so they were the ones who impacted, in that particular segment of time, the 1796 to 1804, which encouraged Venezuela, which encouraged a number of budding nations and countries in the Central and South America, including Mexico with Guerra, President Guerra, who happened to have been a person of African descent, who cut loose in terms of the enslaved Africans in that part of Mexico. And interesting enough, politically, I was born in what you call northern occupied Mexico, which includes all of Texas, all of Oklahoma, all of Arizona, all of Nevada, taking an isthmus up into what we know as a Colorado, and we cannot forget from below Los Angeles all the way up to the northern part of California. That was considered that, and it is word that the very name of the state, which is named California, was named after Queen Cali.
Okay.
And there's much more, but we'll stop there.
Family, Lion Pride. This is a living archive. You know, we know the treasure that we have, but I'm so happy to be able to share this with the world. What year were you born, Baba? On the calendar. Just I want to give them context.
The context.
Because we're going to get into segregation, the Deep South, what it was like. So I want them to understand this is a different time that we're going to about to take them to.
Yes.
Right now. What year were you born?
I was born the 31st of August in 1947, and I personally was not by myself. Asada Shakur was a little bit earlier in July in 1947. And it's on and on and on and on. You have to keep up with those who are born the year, and especially those who are visionary planners, doers, pioneers, and trailblazers.
What is your first memory of childhood in the Deep South, Beaumont, Texas, in maybe you don't remember the 40s, but certainly the early 50s? What was your first childhood memory? What was it like?
My first childhood memory would go inside the home, where there were a number of women, older women that helped care for us while our mother was out working, as many of our people were domestics.
Okay.
And we were working in the homes of Caucasians as they had classified themselves as being white. And I thought that was interesting. And so in addition to growing up with our mother, Murtis Lee Ferdinand, we also grew up with Mother Brown and Mother Carol. And surely my older sister, sometimes she acted like our mother when our mother was not in the house, and I had an older brother, but I was number 3 in the family. I was the bottom one, the baby. And another thing that I remember at a very early age is being in a building which there was music. There wasn't no piano. It wasn't no regular drums, but they had tambourines.
Okay.
They had tambourines, and so I grew up in what they call a portion of my life. I grew up in Evelyn Street Church of God in Christ.
Okay.
Which is Pentecostal holiness.
This is where they get the spirit.
No doubt about it. As a
speaking in tongues was going on.
Hey, glossolalia all the way, speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, we as children, we would emulate, and especially a couple of years ago, I would get up and do the holy dance that our mother did, because children, like they say, train up a child.
Yes.
In the way they should go. And when they get old, when they train up, even when and if they depart, they shall return because they have a foundation within them, the Church of God in Christ. And I would like to also point up Apostle Charles Harrison Mason and Mother Elsie Mason, because as AKA knows, I tend never to mention men, and especially not to just to bring a woman's name in there, just to bring a man's name in there, but usually people have support systems.
Yes.
And that's what I remembered before I was 5 years of age.
So that's a very close-knit society. Obviously, this is segregation.
Yes.
What do you remember about segregation, about what the rules were for engagement with Europeans? What was that climate like as a young black boy? It
came along a little later, because what happened is that in our part of the city, 70% of the time, the business in the community, whether it was a small grocery store, whether it was a barber shop, whether it was a beautician shop, whether it was what we call a mortuary, or a funeral home, whether it was a shoe shine stand, whether it was an eatery. These eateries and things were owned by those people who were classified by those names. You've heard the names before. I prefer to use the terminology as of Genesis 10 in terms of the children of Cush,
Yes.
the children of Havilah,
Yes.
and so forth and so on. And that's what I remember distinctively early on. It wasn't until later when I moved from one end of town, which was called the one of the older part of Beaumont, Texas, in the north end, where our high school, by the time I got up to high school, was way over in the southeast part of Texas. But this is what I remember. I remember the abundance of business people. I heard a little bit later when I grew up that some of these women, they belong to Madam C.J. Walker.
Okay.
The woman who started a door-to-door business and had women to go into their own businesses and have their own home businesses, oftentimes before they open up a public shop. You know how we do it sometimes when we have the rent parties.
Yes, yes.
With the food, and then somebody may expand and have a little restaurant.
Yes, yes. We start a lot of our businesses from the home, even to this day.
Yes, even from this day.
So, were you a victim of any racism growing up? Would you say, or you just saw?
I guess by the time I was a victim of the attempt of racism, I was in a position with others of us to throw down.
Okay.
And so we would be coming back from the football game, which, as what was, though we are taxpayers, and we are in large part citizens who go along with the custom and the traditions of the law, the percentage of money did not come our way. Let's say, for an example, this was long before I was born. There was a pool in a park. And interesting enough, in Beaumont, this park is called Liberia Park. And in Liberia Park was Liberia Pool. And the pool was a segregated pool probably all the way up until 1964, when it was making certain kind of its transitions. Now, if we weren't able to go to the pool on the other side of town, we found, the Raleigh hole to swim in. We found the sand pit to swim in. And ever so often we would slip off to the Nature's River. I don't know how our mother knew that we had been in the river, because we would go all the way across town and swim in the pool, thinking that the chlorine that was in the pool, it would shield our mother, not knowing
that you had been to the river.
That we had been to the river. And the river was closest to us on our side of town. And so, but in terms of those things, we always protected ourselves, stayed with ourselves. But the main thing about it was that do not allow yourself to be caught in certain areas of the city. Stay yourself in your area of the city. And if you crossed over in the areas of other people's in the city, make sure you had a posse with you.
Yes.
And also, not only that you had a posse with you, make sure at the line of demarcation, you stacked up some bricks.
Okay.
Before you went over into there. So if you had to head up and run fast, you could run fast, and then turn around and you had a slew of bricks that were stored that could help you to fray off those who thought that they were going to take over you.
So you had to really have a spirit of a warrior in those days, because I'm hearing you had to have a stash of weaponry.
Yeah.
On the borderline.
Yeah.
So you had to have a contingent of other warriors with you.
Yes.
To go into these regions. This is amazing. Baba Oduno is not a short person. I want everyone to know he's sitting here. How tall are you, Baba?
I'm 6'8".
Okay.
On that system, if you deal with the metric system.
Yes.
2.01 centimeters.
Okay.
And
maybe meters.
Yeah. 2.81. Yeah.
Yes.
Meters. Yeah. I'm roughly two meter sticks on top of
Yes,
each other.
exactly. Yeah.
That's how we did it in the 3rd grade when we
Yes.
were differentiating between the yardstick and the meter stick, because usually with not even just younger people or children, even adults can distinguish when you have the audio, the visual, the tactile, the kinesthetic. And so, because oftentimes when people ask me how tall I am, and there's a reason for that, because during that time, and especially that whole 57, 59, there was a Sputnik that Russia had sent up, and then supposedly this country wanted to teach a whole lot of people, aside from the people who were in the sciences and the engineering and the physics, we wanted to teach them the metric system. 10 is 10. 10, 5 is 10. And so they put money into that. And so also during that time period, you had a transition from when we were born under 48 states. And then roughly in 1959 and 1960, they added Alaska and they added Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were a student athlete. Talk to us a little bit about that experience of being a student athlete back in the segregation days.
Well, back in the segregation days, we had the best football team because we had 2 so-called Negro high schools, and our schools, with the exception of one junior high school, was named after somebody other than a Cushite, or what people call Black American. And so because of that, we made more money than any other Caucasian school, and combined we helped to bring up the budget.
Okay.
There was nothing on the high school level, but I should go back to the elementary school, because in elementary school, some of the barbershops, some of the business, and I'm talking about before 5th grade,
and this is in the segregated part of town.
Yeah, segregated part of town. We playing pony league baseball. That's hard baseball with a hard ball. Some of us also, because of the elementary school situation, we played softball. The girls played softball. I don't ever remember the girls at that time playing hardball. And so we were nurtured in the physical culture, because remember, some of us at least, the men and even some of the women who taught us, they had come immediately out of either World War II, which was roughly 1945, or the Korean War somewhere after 1950, 52, 54. And they were well equipped, well trained, and many of them used their GI Bill. This GI Bill was not only a benefit for the other nationalities in this country, those who classify themselves as white, but it was also from across the board. The only thing about it is that those who are African descendants, they had to fight every step of the way. And it was not only in the Solid South. And when I say the Solid South, I'm talking about the Confederate States of America and their allies, like Kentucky, like New Jersey, like a part of West Virginia, a part of Maryland, and other places. So there was a brother by the name of, he did this book in 1965. His name was Loren, Miller. It was called The Petitioner. He was a barrister. He was a judge. He said every time we had a law passed, he said, and the ink had not dried on the de jure or the legal law, he said we still had to fight to get resources on the side of that, because just because you have a law without resources is just it's kind of like a cow without having any tits to give milk. And so we had to petition, and interesting enough, you had a larger percentage of people. They may have belonged to the NAACP, they may have belonged to the Urban League, But it was an interesting number of people who belonged to the NNBL. The
Okay.
NNBL is the National Negro Business League, which was founded by Booker Pharaoh Washington.
Yes.
And it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention Isaiah Montgomery, Mount Bayou, Mississippi, which was an independent town in 1887. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention my homeboy out of Houston, Texas, Emmett Scott, who became Booker T. Washington's private secretary in 1896. And you had, which came along later, roughly about 1906, you had Allenworth, California, which was an all-Negro town. And there was a number of all so-called Negro towns across this country. And one of the exquisite ones, which is still alive, is called the Piney Woods Country Life School, which was founded in 1906, roughly about 30 miles south of Jackson, Mississippi, by Dean Lawrence Jones, who is also purported to be the grandfather of Catherine Hughes, who many of us know as Kathy Hughes. We were not only doing what we ought to do for ourselves and going to the earth to do something for ourselves, we were not doing it just because we were in a segregated, if you want to go to other parts of the world, an apartheid thing. We were doing it because it was our custom and our tradition to go to the earth to do something for themselves. And since I mentioned Booker T. Washington earlier, Booker T. Washington was noted, not just saying, yes, he said,
Yes, go into it.
but he was noted for a people who put brains into agriculture will always be a successful people.
So you went to school in a athletic powerhouse,
Charlton Pollard.
where the black athletes were generating significant revenue. So I'm assuming at 6'8" you were well treated, a basketball star of sorts.
Yes, and the interesting thing about it,
Baba brought some receipts here. He has a book here with some of.
Okay, the interesting thing about it, I don't know if I can flip it out.
Things.
I don't know if I can flip it out, but there's a picture in here of me when I was, help us out. This is our state championship basketball team.
So we'll make sure we screenshot this so we can
Yeah.
clean.
This is our state champion. And out of all the players on the team, which player do you think is me looking the other way?
Let me see that one.
And I was the only sophomore on that team.
Okay.
Everybody else was a junior or senior. That was March of 1964 at Prairie View, the Interscholastic League. And that was also a Negro college. And we grew up with Wiley College. Some people can remember Foreman's doctrine, the Dr. Tolson, with the winning debate team. They shifted it when they did the movie in terms of who they debated against. They actually debated against, if I'm not mistaken, the University of California.
Okay.
But they shifted it to Harvard.
Okay.
To give it more bang.
Bang for the movie.
Yeah.
So you are part of living history. When did the love of agriculture start?
Well, the love of going to the earth to do something for yourself is that even though I was not born and reared on a farm, Beaumont is kind of ruralish in certain areas, and so our grandmother, Hester Williams Woods of Opelousas, Louisiana, and grandfather Ephraim Woods, and great grandmother Mary Woods, and great grandfather Joseph Woods. They didn't have a farm, the great grandparents, but their children had a 122-acre farm.
Okay.
And so we grew up in the environment of, like, grandfather Ephraim Woods had a wagon, and because this is a time, late teens, and he would negotiate with the person who had the general store in Opelousas, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what happened to him, but at some point he was buying all these things from those who classified themselves as white. They weren't buying anything from us.
Mm.
So grandfather Ephraim, and if you notice, there's quite a few names that came from the Bible.
Yes.
Okay, because people wanted their children to have a shot at biblical values, biblical character, and to be clear about it, and not the challenged ones in the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had actually 8 boys and 5 girls born anywhere between 1890. My dad was born March the 24th, Frank Woods, March the 24th, 1899.
Okay.
Our mother was born, because I can't talk about my dad without talking about our mother and talking about us at the same time. She was born on 9/15/16. That's September the 15th, 1916.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, in Brookhaven, Mississippi. Yeah.
In terms of no culture without agriculture, this is what the world knows you for. Where did that come from? What was the inspiration for you creating that phrase, which is now a global phrase, and a lot of people don't know it comes from Baba Oduno, but where does that come from?
It came from my grandparents. It also came from, I got a little bit concerned about the consciousness of the Cushite, the Basuna, the Mawozi, the Yoruba community, and other communities. They put certain cultural contexts more predominantly ahead of going to the earth to feed ourselves.
Mm.
And it would be remiss of me not to say, and I would be an outright reformist, not to mention the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The time after I evolved through the Evergreen Division number 5th in Seattle of the UNIA African Community League, I looked around, seeing which had an educational institution, and at that time, the whole late 69, 70, the Nation of Islam was the only one that had at least 25 schools of some sorts that were called Muhammad University of Islam. Now, some of these schools had the name or the label, but a few of the newer ones, they were basically nurseries growing into
a school,
Muhammad University of Islam. And so in Denver, Colorado, I was a teacher. September of 1971, I perhaps was right at the age of 25 years of age. I wasn't married. I certainly didn't have no children at that time. And so I worked at the Muhammad University of Islam. My coach, my teacher, Keith X. Bray, we left Seattle in June of 1971, and he was the director of Muhammad University of Islam. So I was a teacher there. We had about 30 students who were from the ages of about 5 to about 12 or 13. And so they could not afford to fund me, but they funded him.
Okay.
And even he was only funded at $400 a month.
Oh, wow.
And he had been making $20,000 a year as an accredited teacher in Seattle, Washington. And so they wanted to pay me $25, but guess what I told them? You take that $25 and you put it on the number 2 poor. The number 2 poor in the Nation of Islam, that was the donation to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I got me a job in the evening from 3 to 9 as a salesman in major appliances. And then I kind of worked my way into the community college so I could get some student aid. You know, we knew how to engineer, you know what I mean? So between the two of those, it buttressed to take care of my rent and take care of the things. And so I would not hope that on anyone to have to do that.
But then how did the phrase come about?
Huh?
How did the phrase, was it an epiphany that you had? There's no
Well, the
culture?
phrase is that Elijah Muhammad was always go to the earth
Okay.
to do something for
So it
yourself.
was inspired by Nation of Islam
Well,
indirectly.
my grandparents,
Yes.
the Nation of Islam, George Washington Carver, knowing Psalms 24, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and they the world and they that dwell therein. Come on, homeboy, homegirls.
Okay.
So
Very powerful. All right. So, talk to me about the UNIA, how you became familiar with the Honorable Marcus Garvey when you became an official member, and then also from there, you know, when you became aware of Emperor Haile Selassie, Ethiopia, etc.
I would say it was probably somewhere in my 8th or 9th grade years. I grew up in 2 barbershops in Beaumont, Texas. One of the barbershops was my barbershop in what it was called the Negro Wall Street on Forsyth and Natchez and Wall and College Street. And so in the barbershop, you have a conglomeration of people coming through. And I probably heard of the name from a giant before Marcus Garvey, because I heard of Jack Johnson,
Okay.
the boxer.
Okay.
And so Jack Johnson coming out of roughly 50 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico from Galveston Island. And so, you know how somebody would come through and say, well, you know, the people said the only people that we heard of in the world was Jack Johnson and Marcus Garvey. And so you would hear that, and what happened is that there were men and women, even though they didn't articulate the name, they articulated the practice. And it wasn't the practice of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey as I knew of in July of 1977. It was the practice of Booker T. Washington. Okay? It was the practice of Booker T. Washington, because there were schools named after Booker T. Washington. Not a high school in Beaumont, Texas, but it was an elementary school. There were schools named after Mary McLeod Bethune. I attended Adams, which was named after an African descendant. I attended Paul Laurence Dunbar Junior High School. I also attended Charlton Pollard, which merged roughly in 1926. There were 3 high schools supposedly under the name. There was a Lucky, there was a Charlton, there was a Pollard, and the people who guided them was Professor Lucky from Prairie View. Our first graduates from Charlton was the Charlton School, and it's almost impossible to talk about reading schools without talking about the spiritual houses.
Okay.
The spiritual house was Live Oak Baptist Church, which it's not unusual. The church is occupied more like Friday, Wednesday, Sunday. The other days of the week, they're open. So many of the people who were at Live Oak Baptist Church, some of them had gone to Prairie View, A&M, agriculture and mechanical. Some of them had gone to Wiley, agriculture and mechanical. And some of these schools had a little bit varied name when they started.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that people went to saying something to you like, well, you better check yourself. You're trying to act like Jack Johnson. You better check yourself. You know what I mean? You better stay in line. You're trying to act like Jack Johnson. And the code was, and it probably wasn't before I was, somewhere in the 9th on to the 10th grade, that I had heard of Jack Johnson when we were in elementary school. But the code evolved. And the code evolved was that Jack Johnson stood on his own, stood on his own foundation, and not only inside the boxing ring. Intellectually, also he's considered someone who made an innovation on the adjustable wrench. And to be disparagingly of Jack Johnson, these other people who classify themselves as white, a slice of them went to calling it the monkey wrench. Okay?
That's where the name monkey wrench come from?
That's a part of it, yeah.
Okay.
And so, but what happens is that, see, the whole name of Marcus Garvey came into effect because there were women and men who were race men and race women. They had to depend upon themselves. They had to do for themselves. They had to build their own schools. They had to build their own churches. They had to build their own businesses. Now, quite naturally, you had some people who fell in with the line of wanting to go along with, I call it, you got the visionary, the thumb. You got the visionary planners, doers. They step out in front.
Yes.
Then you got the pioneers. The pioneers help build. Then you have the trailblazers. The trailblazers open up what may have been covered over by the pioneers and the visionary planners. Then you got the people who come in who are reformers. The reformers, though they are part of whatever they are part of, they kind of want to go along probably more like 60% and not go along 40%. Then the next group of people you had, which I call AKA, they are either the stragglers or the fence riders. They want to do 50-50. They're trying to see which way the wind is blowing. And then you had
a lot of those now.
Yeah, that's a septenary that I use.
Yeah.
And then you have the sixth one. It's called the bandwagoners.
Yes.
Okay, we can go ahead and do something after the visionary planners, doers, pioneers, trailblazers, and even to some degree the reformers have done something. Okay. And so then you had number 7, which I call the don't give a doggers, which that's an AKA with the Panther Party, which called the lumpen proletariat. That means that they don't care about no laws, no rules. They're going to get it how they can, when they can, under any circumstance. And they may even, quote, by any means necessary. So that's why it's very important to have come up around a sufficient number of race men and race women, even though they did not mention the name that often of Marcus Garvey. They mentioned the name of George Washington Carver.
Okay.
They mentioned the name of George Washington Carver, and quite naturally, George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington are like twin towers. It's almost like Booker T. Washington's second wife, Olivia Davidson, and his final wife was Margaret Murray, who was from D.C., but she graduated from M Street School for Colors, which became Dunbar roughly in 1914, 1915 in Washington, D.C. And Nanny Helen Burroughs graduated from the same school a little bit later in 1896, and many others. And if you had people like Dr. Grimke, the Grimke sisters, Carter G. Woodson, Anna Julia Cooper, our sister Mary Church Terrell, and that's just a short list of people of excellence.
Well, I know you go deep. So what made you become a member of the UNIA? You are just kind of hearing this voice as a whisper, people talking about Marcus in the same sentence with Jack Johnson, but when did you become actually a member and take that step?
I became a member. I heard something about it in late 1967, in the fall, and there were some people who told me, "Don't deal with these Negroes." They said, "Don't deal with these Negroes," and they named the names. Now they didn't say the Black Cultural Center, okay, but it just so happened Keith Bray, who was the director of the Black Cultural Center, and the Benjamin Banneker weekend school, Cliff Hooper, also who wrote the book Black Father, Black Faith. You had David Mills, who had played basketball at Seattle University, and at the time, I was a student athlete at Seattle University because I had, in fact, had about 45 offers from major PWI institutions, that's predominantly white institutions.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, even though I came out of the Solid South, and I don't remember any of my teachers who went to other than a so-called Negro college at that particular point in time. Yet, you know, I had decent grades. When I talk about decent grades, I probably came out of high school with roughly about a 3-point average.
Okay.
I stayed on the honor roll intermittently. And as I was mentioning to Brother Kwasi, I said I was on the student council. And at that time, my name was Albert Woods. But the interesting thing, I didn't use Woods. I used Ferdinand because that was the name on my birth certificate.
We're gonna take some pictures of those so we can show it on the screen. So, what was the year that you became a member of the UNIA?
November of 1968. Mother Sarah Lynch and her daughter Daisy Boyetta, they had the Garvey bookstore in Seattle.
Okay, so you were in Washington State.
I was in Washington State, in Seattle. Yes.
Not Washington, D.C., Washington State on the West Coast, Northwest.
Yes. And they had a few other, what you call, people who were Garveyites, but they were not necessarily in the Evergreen Division number 50, which was established in 1921.
Okay, in Seattle. Okay,
in Seattle.
And how did you get from Beaumont, Texas, to Seattle?
I was a big dog in basketball. I either flew or went to 7 colleges. My senior year during the month of March. I didn't have to fly to Lamar State College of Technology, that because I was in Beaumont. I was supposed to line up to be playing with Elvin Hayes under Guy Lewis at the University of Houston. It was kind of a little bit too close. Okay. That's only 85 miles, right?
Okay.
And so since some people thought I was a decent student in school, I visited Cal Berkeley with the head coach, Herrera's. I went to Oregon State at Corvallis in Oregon. But I'm going to come back and go east. I visited Murray State in Paducah, Kentucky, even though I had to fly into Louisville, take a smaller plane that took us on to Murray State College. But the beautiful thing about it, and I'm not going to forget it, I also visited the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Okay.
And so I eventually visited Seattle University, and I don't know whether I was wise or whether I heard the older brothers. I signed a letter of intent with the University of Houston, Guy Lewis, slated to play along Elvin Hayes, and it may not have been Elvin Hayes, it may have been somebody else, but Elvin was already there 2 years ahead of me. And then I signed with Seattle University. I had a very difficult time in Seattle University my first year, but the interesting thing that happened is that both of them were independents. And so if you signed with independents, you left yourself a greater latitude and longitude, because if you signed with any school that was in a conference, you could not go to a school in the conference.
In the conference if you left them.
Yeah, you could. And so And then subsequently, and I always liked the missus, and it was a whole lot of cultural things. I had a less than a, well, yeah, less than a, well, I guess it was less than a year later, our mother passed, September 1967, and I shifted to a community college in Bellevue,
Okay.
across
Was it
Lake
for
Washington.
financial reasons that you shifted, or?
No, I shifted. I shifted because I flunked out of college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you having a good time,
Well,
Baba?
I don't think it was so much that I was having a good time. It was just the adjustment,
Being on your own.
being on adjustment, being on our own. So when I went to Bellevue, some people wanted me to play the first year. I said, "Oh no, I got to pull my grades up."
Yeah, yeah.
And so, so I practiced with the team that won the state championship in junior college, but I was not on that team. The next year, I came out strutting, and so I ended up being on the first five. I ended up being on the board committee with over 300 rebounds that year, and it would have been remiss of me that I patterned my game after William Felton Russell, that many of you call, and the population called, Bill Russell,
Oh,
who was born in Monroe, Louisiana.
And I
He had
see
an
that.
older brother by the name of Charlie Russell, who was also an athlete, but he was also a scholar. And as you said, you would make a screenshot. There's a picture that I have of myself in here at Bellevue. I just made the adjustment. It's not a sin to fall. It's a sin to fall and don't get up. This was something they did with me. This is me here, November of 1968.
And we're gonna take a picture and put it on the screen. In terms of, have you had a chance to visit the continent of Africa?
No, I have not.
Okay. And then tell me, in terms of, what was your first interaction with Rastafari and learning about Haile Selassie? Well, first, I would imagine growing up you heard about the emperor.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And what did you hear?
It was just kind of, he wants to rule over people, a whole lot of different kinds of things. But what buttressed that,
Yeah.
because remember, we knew, and for some reason, even in the Baptist church, we knew of Psalms 68:31, princesses shall come out of Egypt and Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands. Blah, blah. So even though they were saying what they were saying, we had already, I don't forget, will Ethiopian change his spot, or will a leopard
Yes. Kind of Ethiopian
change his spot?
changes color,
Color.
or leopard his spots.
And then we also heard,
Jeremiah.
look not upon me because I'm black and comely in a whole lot of Bibles.
Songs
But in
of
some of the
Solomon,
older
yeah.
Bibles, it was black and beautiful.
Psalms of Solomon. Yes.
Psalms of Solomon. So, and that's why I really like to talk about Nanny Helen Burroughs, because she and others in her connection, she called it the home life, your spiritual life, and your school. I interject in that for boys, the barbershop,
Barbershop.
because many of us ended up going to the barbershop when we were about 3 or 4 years of age.
I had
And-
my days there. So you heard about the emperor and the barbershop.
Yeah, heard about the emperor in passing in the barbershop, because remember, Beaumont is a port city, and some people shipped out to various ports from around the world.
Around the world. When is the first time you came in contact with a Rastafari person?
Probably in between Seattle, Washington, before 1970. Definitely Denver, Colorado. Matter of fact, some people thought it was a strange dude, because he was one of the few persons who had locks.
Okay.
Okay,
And what year was this?
that was definitely somewhere in between 72, 73.
Okay.
And I was also, at the same time, I don't know how I ended up doing it, I was organizing the chapter of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, because Denver had individuals who were work-study people
Mm-hmm.
with the AAPRP, but they did not have a Colorado chapter. So
Okay.
I was one of the founding organizers. Well, I would just say I was one of the founding work-study people who became a quasi-organizer, who became a work-study, who became a pre-cadre.
Okay. So did you think it was strange that this man had locks and he was talking about this Ethiopian emperor that you had heard about in the barbershop when you met this man?
I don't think so, because I guess I had visualized people in East Africa, the Jingis, the Tutsis, and there were other people who wore locks, so they had some formation, so it was not.
So it wasn't. And you were already heavily Pan-African. You were part of the UNA by this time. So you are already Black Pride. Black is beautiful.
Yeah, well, see, but I had that in Beaumont, Texas.
Yes, from the foundation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a shocker to you to encounter Rastafari.
Yeah, because you see, some people forget that that there's a poem, and I was looking for the poem that Langston Hughes did from Beaumont to Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
1943, because there was a race ride in Detroit in '43. I think there was one in New York, and that was in Beaumont, Texas, in June of 1943. As a matter of fact, this cycle is the 80th year of those race rides in Detroit, New York, Beaumont, Texas, and basically it was during the war, and so the federal government was pushed to pay so-called Negroes at the same rate federally
Mm-hmm.
that they paid other nationalities who classified themselves as white. However, one of the litmus tests of the enemy is to suggest that you want to get her woman, their woman. It may be a her woman, but anyway, parenthetically. And because it's very easy to say that, and if you check many of the race riots that happen, 50% or more of them was the accusation that somebody either whistled at,
A white woman.
reckless eyeballing at, or went out of the way of saying something to this woman, and I don't know whether that's going to bleed into why the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey ended up formally doing what he did
Yes.
in Atlanta in 1925 with one of the high officials of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, when he met with the
Yes.
Klan, which a lot of African Americans were not very happy with.
No, they were not.
Yes. One of the things that I wanna pick your brain is, do you remember the first time that we met?
Was it?
Do you
Was it
remember?
after?
Hmm?
Was it after the March on Washington?
You mean the Million Man March?
Yeah.
I came to DC in '96, so I didn't attend the Million Man March. I came the following year.
No, but that's why I put it.
Yeah,
That's why I said it was.
yeah,
Yeah, I had a sense that it was after the Million Man March.
yeah. But do you remember what's your first memory of myself?
I don't know whether you were on campus
Mm-hmm.
at Howard, or it may have been at a cultural activity
Yes.
of some sorts, but it had something to do with being around a reasoning situation,
Yes.
and I said, oh, that's a young chap. You know, that may sound funny to a lot of people, because I'm the kind of person, I said, like this is, because people don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have to be knocking and seeking and knocking and seeking and knocking and seeking. They could just do like 97.5% of the other people who are matriculating through this curriculum.
And there are generations of Howard students that you have helped as a Jegna. So I just want that to be clear. That's part of your ministry, is working with children, working with students,
Yes.
and that's always been part of your profile. I want to thank you because I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to thank you because since I've known you, anytime someone calls, you have answered the call.
Give thanks.
You were a regular attendee of our Haile Selassie study group that we had at
Yes.
Sankofa.
Idor.
IDOR, Universal Development of Rastafari study group at Sankofa. You saw my children grow up there.
Yes.
You know, what? Why was it important for you to attend those study group sessions? You know, even though from outward appearance you don't appear as a Rastafari, but you were one of the most faithful attendees of these study sessions where we were studying the teachings of His Majesty. Why was that important to you?
It was important to me because there was like a less visible admiration of Rastafari.
Yes.
You know, sometimes when you got older brothers and sisters, you know what I mean? It's a whole nother kind of a, you know, they have a whole nother level of inner perception.
Yes, yes.
Inner perception because they not looking necessarily just at the outer appearance.
Yes.
They're looking predominantly on the inside.
Yes.
As Nkrumah, and I guess I can quote that because, you know, Nkrumah got it from other Pan-Africanists. You are not an African because you were born in Africa. You're an African because Africa was born in you.
Yes.
And the Honorable Marcus Mosiah's God even went on to suggest when they said, well, we want to take all black people back to Africa. He said, that's your view. He said, there are some Negroes who are no good here in the United States and the Americas, and they would end up being no good for the continent of Africa.
Stick a pin because there's a big controversy now. A lot of African Americans, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's a segment of African Americans or black people in this country that are saying they're not African. They are the descendants of the indigenous. You know, they've always been here. We know that black people were the first people in the Americas. That's without question. But these brothers and sisters are saying they have no African blood essentially, and that they are, you know, that the majority of black people, they call in Foundation of Black Americans, or ADOS, that the majority were here before slavery. Some of them say that the numbers in slavery were exaggerated, and that most of the black people here are the descendants of those that were here indigenously. What do you think about that as an elder and Pan-African?
Well, as an elder, we ought to always be on the side of building up.
Yes.
That's number one.
Yes.
Priority. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is this.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look and see, number one thing, the indigenous people of the planet, the earliest indigenous people of the planet, were not standing still on continents.
Yes.
There was a slice of those indigenous people from the heartland, and the heartland, wherever the heartland happened to be, they were travelers. One of the things that's interesting about that, unless they look at before Paul Cuffe,
Yes.
the shipbuilder,
Yes.
of 1787 through 1812, unless they look at the African Methodist Episcopal Church
Mm-hmm.
of 1787 and their preamble
Mm-hmm.
with Absalom Jones, Bishop Absalom Jones, who was the older
Mm-hmm.
of Richard Allen, unless they're looking, and Sarah Allen, unless they're looking at James Varick,
Mm-hmm.
and Amelia Varick of the AME, and in 1870 they put a Zion so they could differentiate between the AME New York, the AME Philadelphia, and the AME Maryland, Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, if I'm not careful, every generation will come up. It was in the Freedom Journal. Cornish remained here. We're talking about the 1827. Cornish remained here. Rustworm went to Liberia.
Mm.
And there's a waterway in Liberia named for Rustworm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an either or. It's both and.
It's both and.
However, for people who are not willing to study and practice with those who have looked at both and, then it means that they're just looking at they're Africans, they're from the Caribbean, we're from the United States. That's kind of like a dichotomized situation.
Yes.
And so what is best for us to do, why were the institutions, at least adjective-wise, if not a noun,
Mm-hmm.
called the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion, even the CME, they didn't quite get into the African. They call themselves the Colored Methodists. And you have the Free African Society
Okay.
of 1787.
So there's a long
And
history.
even Lot Carey, who left here in 1821 out of Norfolk, headed to Liberia because Liberia was set up for, quote, those Negroes who had been formerly here. And he and Colin Teague and his family, they returned through Sierra Leone to Liberia. And when they built a church in Monrovia, and it was called Providence. And they believed by works, not just belief alone. They believed by works that it was providential that they would return to the continent of their mothers and their fathers. But at the same time, it was a mission abroad. And so it will continue the home mission. And we have to see how Allen, Quinn, Payne, and Turner, Henry McNeil Turner, in 1893, when he went to Liberia, the 12th bishop of the AME Church. I got that backwards. He went 1891 to Liberia. 1893, he went to Johannesburg. And so a lot of people do, it's almost like, I don't want to bring it up, but anyway, you know how you either or. No, it could be both and both and, the scriptures is clear, where two or more touch and agree. Okay? Now, what that essentially means, it has to be at least two, but two is too limited. It has to be two or more. That's why I said both and.
Yes.
And so that's how I wrap that up. And I don't know, I always like to put my young people, that's my granddaughter and her cousins, Sanaa, in 2017. And I think that's a nice picture of those young people. And I don't just like to have my young people only. These are some young people from Homa Bay, Kenya, where some of us are working and still need some assistance with doing a borehole or a well in Homa Bay. So as we close, my name is Oduno A. Tariq, A.L.F. Woods. That stands for Albert Lee Ferdinand Woods, because that was my name prior to 1969. That's my name on my birth certificate. That's the name that includes my maternal side of my family and the paternal side of my family. And we have to leave markers.
Yes. So
we just cannot block stuff off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though you evolved to Baba Oduno, you want to leave markers for the ancestors to come.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Can find where their ancestor sprung from, and can see the evolution. I want to just thank you on behalf of the Lion Voice Network, on behalf of the Lion Pride. This was a great joy, over 20 years in the making. One of our jegnas here, that, you know, in the Rastafari community in the DMV, we have great love for Baba Oduno. The Panafrican community has great love for our Baba Oduno, and we're gonna try to get him here. I had to keep it short. Okay, this is the creed. Let the hungry be fed, naked clothed, sick nourished, ancients protected, and the infants cared for. Yes. So I have to bring Baba Tariq forward because there's so much history. He could go days and days. We didn't get into Booker T. Washington.
As long as I have
We
a
didn't get
sandwich.
into- yes, we didn't get into George Washington Carver. We didn't get into all of the history that this man can possibly. But I'm glad that we got what we got because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice.
Lion voice. Yeah. One king of kings, one throne. Thrones are the house of the great King David. I and I the generation of them that seek him, that seek the high face, O Jah. So lift up your heads, O you Ethiopians, and be lifted up, O you ever live indoors, and let the king of Mount Zion Yadi. Well, we are king, we're that crown. Stepping on the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for we a can fi stand our ground. Attack the black man and them get smacked down. She a queen, we're that crown. Stepping at the ring now, she won't back down. Ready for we a can fi stand our ground. Attack the black woman and them get smacked down. For combat, have to stand for the black. Stand against the beast when the beast come attack. When the beast send crack, try to tear us down. When the lion roar, everybody hear the sound in Babylon town. Wicked man grind drown. Earthquake shake, all them bars will break. Well, here's a hot take. There's a brimstone lake. Somebody gotta pay for the choice they make. Yo, be careful what you say, cause some news is fake. And every crew got a stitch to watch the moves you make. Well, it's not Drake, but the song's still great. Give your truth and rights, ladies, move the way. Say yo,